Thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. I welcome you to present on this topic on cybersecurity, the big picture. So telling about myself, so I am Harihara Sudan. So I'm working for an MNC company and I have totally 3+ years of experience in the field of information security, data security and privacy, governance, risk and compliance, and blockchain security. So moving on to the agenda for today. So first we will see about what is the importance of information security in an organization and some awareness on common attacks that are happening in our organization and some of the security principles that needs to be followed and what is the difference between data privacy and data security and what is the importance of data privacy and with some data privacy regulations. So we'll start with information security. So I think many of you here might heard about this term, right? Information security, cyber security, everything. So the difference between information security and cyber security is a subset or it is under a part of information security, I would say, because information security is a broader area. Under information security, you will be having lot of technologies and fields. For example, GRC, data protections, everything will be coming under information security. So cyber security is more about cyber is connected module or connected networks. And security is how we are protecting those connected networks. So that is what cyber security means. So information security, what we will be doing is it is the protection of information and information systems from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, and disruption. And I believe many of the organizations right now, there are a lot of data breaches are happening due to unauthorized access and unauthorized disclosure of information and disruption of information. So disclosure of information in the sense, if I'm planning to publish one new product for the market, right? So if it is getting the data or the related product related information is getting leaked in the websites, right? Then that is called as information disclosure. And next one is unauthorized access. Unauthorized access is more about the one who should not authorize to access those application data or an application. So if he have the access, then he can do anything, right? So he can able to modify those data and there can be a huge loss of reputation as well as huge loss of financial impact as well. So we as a cybersecurity specialist, we protect those informations from hackers, from malicious people, everybody. So information security is more about protecting the CIA of the information. So what do we mean by CIA? CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So information security is more about three factors: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality means preventing the unauthorized disclosure of information. So basically the access control. So am I the right person to access this application? Am I the right person to access this data, right? So and integrity means completeness of the information, protecting from unauthorized changes to ensure that it is reliable and correct. And availability is authorized users should be able to access data whenever they need to do so. So I'll give you an example to understand these three terms, right? So for example, if I'm opening a bank account, so I'll be having the net banking functionality as well. So what I will be doing is that I will be having a username and password, which is only known to me. So where I will be logging in into the net banking to make some transactions. So I will be entering my username and password, and then I will be entering inside. So which determines the authorization. So am I the right person and he is having the right credentials or not? So that determines the confidentiality. If someone else, right? So if someone else logins into Hari's bank account, then that becomes the unauthorized disclosure of information, right? Because he doesn't have access. He has used my credentials and he is using it to make some transactions. And integrity is more about completeness of the information. So for example, if I'm sending any mail to another person, he should receive the entire information. There should not be a third person who can modify those information and he can make some changes. So that is the integrity part. So with the same example, we all will be having the transaction history, right? So we'll be reviewing all those things. If there is something, any modifications which have been done to the transaction history, then it is not good, right? So the entire integrity part will be lost. So you should always ensure that the completeness of information is being maintained. And availability is banking application. For me, I can make transactions at any time. 24 hours, it should be available, right? So whether the authorized user should be able to access data whenever they need to do so. So that's what availability meaning. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability is more important for any information. So as a cyber security standpoint, so we will ensure that all these three factors, CIA, is being protected for any asset. For example, if an asset is coming into an organization, first from the cybersecurity standpoint, we will determine what is the CIA rating of the application. So if it is a high risk application, or if it has all the PII data, so we will think in such a way that if the integrity is being lost, so what is the impact that the organization will have? So those kind of factors will come under CIA. So moving on, so now we will see about some of the importance of information security. So cyber security generally focuses on protecting computers, mobile devices, networks, applications, and data from unauthorized access. Because we in a team, right? So many people might have a privileged access, right? So only they should have need to know basis, and unauthorized access should be totally, it should be controlled. Because if I have an extra access, right, I can do anything. If I have an admin access, I can add, delete, or anything. I can modify those in DB. So that becomes a problem. So we should always ensure that our data or any mobile devices, networks, and applications are being protected from unauthorized access. And second point is minimize the threat surfaces attacks on companies. So attack surface can be anything, right? It can be infrastructure, it can be an asset, it can be an application, it can be anything. So attack surface, basically it relies on the total number of all possible entry points. So it includes all the vulnerabilities, all the endpoints, and it can be anywhere in the part of organization. So it will be of two types. One is on digital attack surface, and next one is on physical attack surface. So if an attacker compromise all the endpoint devices, for example, we have all the desktops, laptops, mobile devices, and USB ports, right? So if it is being improperly handled, right? So what is the risk that it has? So those kind of things that we will be determining from the security standpoint. So how we need to maintain a strong security posture in order to avoid these type of like threat surfaces attackers. So we do risk assessments for an application. For example, we identify those risks through a risk management tool. So we will do a risk assessment where we will identify what are all the potential events that is being happening, and we perform and prioritize those risks based on low to high, and we will track those risks where it is being occurring, and whether it is really a risk. We will work with the business teams to understand whether it really affects the process or not, and we will monitor those risks, and as well as the cycle continues. And third one is we ensure data processing, safe data processing. So because nowadays in database, or it can be anything, right? So data actively we are moving from one location to another, right? Such as internet or through private network. So we should have a set of process or practices designed to protect your critical information technology ecosystem. Because effective data security adopts a set of controls. We will be having a set of controls and techniques for the respective applications to identify what is the importance of various data sets that is being applicable, and what are the most appropriate security solutions that needs to be applied. So for example, data encryption is one factor. So for example, if I'm sending a PII or a confidential data to someone else, I will ensure that the data is being encrypted in transit, or it is getting stored in stored encrypted, and also in motion. So all the three factors, right? Encryption is more important, and we should always ensure the safe data processing. And fourth point is ensure safety of online transactions and personal information exchanged over internet. So we use, even though we use a lot of secure connections in our homes, but we need to make sure, right, both our Wi-Fi connections as well as the website URL that we are using, right, that is being secured. So you should always use a trusted website whether it is a HTTPS website or a HTTP. So you should always make sure that you are using a trusted website, and you should have a policy to read all the privacy statement. So that is more important when you are using or when you are doing any personal information through internet. You should always read the privacy statement, and you should always keep a eye on your whatever the accounts you have. And last point is ensure protection of health information, intellectual property, and governmental and industry information systems. So as we all know, health informations are sensitive PII. Basically, it is personally identifiable information, which using a health information we can identify a specific individual, right? So those are all the SPII data. We should always ensure that is being properly handled with care. So we takes care of all these. These are all some of the importance of information security, but not limited to. There are a lot of points that we will be working on. And next one is I would like to tell some of the terminologies from cybersecurity standpoint. So the first one is threat. Threat is anything that can damage or destroy an asset. And threat refers to the factors that have potential to harm an organization. For example, attacks. So we see a lot of hackers and malicious peoples are making a lot of threat and attacks to the organizations, right? So we will see some different type of attacks in the coming slides. And vulnerability is a weakness or gap in our protection efforts. So for example, for every application from a vendor, we will be getting the security patch updates, right? So for a month or for a bi-weekly, so we'll be getting some security patch. So if we do not update those patches, right, so there can be a huge possibility of malware is getting installed to an application, then that causes a weakness to the application. So which will make an attacker to easily gain access to your application and do all those changes and malicious things. So you should always ensure that all the patches has being updated and your application is up to date. And third one is risk. Risk is the potential for loss, damage, or destruction of an asset as a result of a threat exploiting a vulnerability. So when a risk is being occurring for an organization, right? So it is when a threat is being exploiting a vulnerability, it causes a risk. It causes a financial loss. It causes the reputation loss, which in turns cause the customer trust and loss of competitive edge. So we will see how a threat exploits the vulnerability and how the risk is getting established with an example now. So here you can see, right? So an actor with some intent. So an actor can be an hacker, employee, or a third party, or we as a customer, right? With intent. An intent can be accidental, malicious, or environmental, who initiates the vector event. A vector event is the threat type. A threat type can be, we have a lot of attacks now happening, malware attack, theft of data theft, social engineering attack in our social platforms, and even breach of platforms and theft of physical items and hardware in our organization. An attacker with the intent against vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are basically the software that we use for the applications, or it can either be insider threat. So insider threat is someone who works inside the organization and trying to perform some malicious activities. So on attack surface, which we talks about, right? An attack surface can be a people, customer, facilities, infrastructures, information assets, or platforms. It can be anything, right? We can attack, we can try to attack on anything, on people, customer, infrastructure, which leads to loss of consequences, lot of consequences. So loss of data, loss of confidential data, loss of reputation, etc. So we should always ensure that all these data, right, all these threat vulnerabilities, right, those are being protected from the malicious actors. So by this, how this example can clearly states you that how a threat and vulnerability are giving the risk to the organization. So it started with an actor. So it can be an intentionally or non-intentionally, right? So who initiates the threat type of an event, which against the vulnerability, which leads to the potential consequences. And yeah, this is what I have explained. So the threats which exploits the vulnerabilities to the respective asset for the organization. The asset can be anything, a people, customer, or the desktop or the laptops. The risk is being established for the organization. So we will now see some of the common cyber attacks. So we'll look into some scenarios on how an attacker or how the hacker is gaining access from unintentionally how we perform. So for example, a username and password is being entered. So just imagine a convenient cash bank, a banking platform. So I'm logging inside the web page. So the username and password transferred for verification, it goes on to the bank's database and it verifies whether Hari is having the access or not. So once I have the access, the authentication is being done and I'm able to log in into the net banking where I can see account summary and all where I can pay all the online transactions. So this is the happy path. This is what is happening in all our day-to-day scenarios. So just consider if the bad actor tries to create a fake website, right? So for example, he have his own database and he creates an exact legitimate uh, like a web page for the banking web page, and where it exactly look every link, right, which they are providing, it looks same. So what he will do, he will send you an email. I think many people have crossed this situation, right? So we'll be getting some emails from bank stating that you have won and so money, or you have a special offer for you. Please click the following link to avail those offer, right? So they will, all those emails which they are sending, right, it will be as original as the bank is sending. So what you will be doing is that once you right click on those link, and if you see the address which is actually redirecting is http www.ccbank.or, but the text to display you can see it is https. So which means that we have just renamed the link to https to gain the confidence of the users as that it is the legitimate one. So once if we click, right, so it will automatically goes to the hackers database. So if a customer is again logging in, he creates the original web page same as the bank. Here you can see everything will be same. So once he logging inside the website, right, it went to the hackers database, and this attack is known as phishing attack. So once phishing attacks can be done through emails, through messages, because we used to get a lot of messages through phones and we will be getting a lot of messages through emails. But we should always ensure and bring our cursor to the link and check whether it is HTTPS or the link which is directing is secure or not. So that is more important. So if it is not secure, it is not at all advisable to open that link, because an malicious actor or an attacker can easily gain access and he can easily steal your credentials, so which make him to make more money and your data will be logged. And next one is malware. Malware is intrusive software that is designed to damage and destroy computers and computer system. And malware is a contraction for malicious software. And examples of some common malware includes Trojan viruses, spyware, and ransomware. And malware typically infects a machine by tricking users into clicking or installing a program that they shouldn't from the internet. And impact would be ranging from slowing down your computer, exfiltrating the sensitive information. So for example, we all have seen, right? For example, if we go to some website, there will be a lot of application or advertisements will be coming in the, it will populate and a lot of advertisements will be coming. And once we click on something, it will go to another website, right? Which is mean by the system is not being secured. So they are taking you to the someone's hacker's database where they can do anything. They can steal your credentials, and with that credentials, they can make lot of attacks with ransomware. They will ask for money and it can be anything. So you should always ensure that whatever the website you are visiting or whatever the website you are going, right, it should be HTTPS and it should have the secured symbol being mentioned at the top of the link. So you should avoid clicking on those links which you are not sure whether the link is secure or not. So once you clicked, right, automatically what you will be doing without your intention, the malicious software will be installed in your computer, which you will not be knowing. So slowly it will eat all your data and it will take it to the all the hackers database. And once they have all the credentials, right, your computer will start slowing down and he will be exfiltrating all the sensitive informations you have. So you should always ensure that unless or until it is a trusted website, you should avoid clicking on those links or visiting those websites. And next one is ransomware, which is more related to malware, which I'm talking with. So once the malware is being installed in your application, right, it blocks access to the data. If you have any sensitive information or if you have any confidential information in your application, right, he will encrypt those information, and an attacker will encrypt those information, and he will lock your system totally, unless or until if you pay the requested amount by hacker, then he will be releasing all your sensitive data. This has happened to lot of big companies that we know. They have lost million amount of dollars on this. So because you should always ensure that the malicious software is more and more dangerous, because you will not be knowing whether the software is being installed or not. It can be from anywhere, any application or any website you visit. So it is always advisable that you visit only the trusted website, because once the victim have your credentials, or once the victim encrypts your data, and if you locks his system, whatever he demands, right, whatever he demands, you must pay. So it is very, very difficult difficult to secure. So you should always ensure that the data is being secured. So once the revenue is lost, you will lose the customer as well, right? So you should avoid damage to the company's brand and reputation, as long as the list of expensive recovery cost. So moving on, so we'll now see some of the security controls and principles. So controls and types. So controls are measures taken to reduce information security risk, such as information system breaches and data theft. And preventive are those controls. There are totally 3 controls in cybersecurity. One is preventive, detective, and corrective. So preventive controls are those controls which are put in place to avert a negative event from occurrence. For example, access control such as password. Because if you have a proper access control in place, like no one can gain access, right? So if I have those username and password which is only listed to Hari, and another person can't use my credentials to log in. So it is always advisable to have a preventive control and multi-factor authentications being implemented for any applications, or for any or for any website, or any SharePoint site. Even it is a sensitive data holding SharePoint site, right? You should always ensure that proper access control is being implemented. And second one is detective controls. Detective controls are designed to detect a threat event. Example, audit logs. For example, even though I have a proper access control and everything, right? If Hari have some admin access, if I'm doing some changes in database, right? So there should be a proper audit logs which tells that Hari have done so and so changes at this time. And there should be a timestamp which says that Hari have made changes ABC to DEF. So if we have the proper audit logs, we can ensure that where the problem occurs and who have modified those changes. So there should always be a proper detective controls in place. And third one is corrective. And corrective controls are designed to mitigate and limit the potential impact of the threat event which is being occurred. Example, incident management system. So every organization will be having an incident management. There will be a separate incident management team, because once the incident has been occurred, right, they will be analyzing it, how the incident has been happened and from where it is being happened, and what are the specific principles to avoid those incident happening again, right? So they will have a step-by-step process on analyzing where the risk has been happened and how to avoid those risks and how to mitigate those risks. So there should be a proper corrective action plan that needs to be implemented. So these are the 3 important control measures that must be in place when we consider from protecting from information risk. And moving on to security principles. Security principles are basically the guidelines that should be used when designing a secure system. So in cybersecurity, there are 3 A's totally. One is authentication, authorization, and accounting. So authentication is used to verify the identity of an entity. For example, I'm entering my username and password, whether I have the access to this application or not. And authorization is used to verify the person has the correct permissions to access. For example, I can log into my company's portal, but if I want to log into any specific application SharePoint site, right, then it will verify whether Hari have access to that respective web application or not. So that is known as authorization. Authentication is I have username and I have password, but authorization is whether Hari has the password for viewing all those details. The easy example can be Facebook, right? A username and password is I have a credential, but Hari have the credentials to visit those web page or post or story, right? That is authorization. And third one is accounting. Accounting involves recording the entity's actions by logging their activities. As I already said, logging is another detective control. So there should be a proper accounting in place, which involves that all our entities actions as being recorded. And moving on to separations of duties. Separation of duties is the concept of having more than one person required to perform a task. In general, right? In general, in business, the separation by sharing of more than one individual is an internal control intended to prevent fraud and error. For example, in a development, so if I am developing a code, right? So I should not be the person who will be pushing those code into the QA environment. There should be another person who will be reviewing my code, and he will be able to push those in the environment. There should be a proper segregation of duties between the teams as well as between the access. So for example, if I'm raising a request that my manager used to approve, right? So I should not be the same person who will be approving my same request, right? So there should be another person who will be approving my request. So there should be a proper separation of duties needs to be implemented, which is one of the key security principles. And last one is need to know and least privileges. The principle of least privileges refers to the information security concept, where the user is given minimum level of access or permissions. So what I would say is that least privilege is all about what user is allowed to do, and need to know is about what data that the user is allowed to see. Because if I have, right, the least privilege, right, if Hari wants to do so and so operations, so only that level of access needs to be provided for Hari, instead of providing over access, or instead of providing any admin access, right? It can cause a potential gap into the system. Whereas if I want to whatever the user is allowed to see, right, that level of data is only will be allowed to see. So those kind of restrictions between access and viewing, right? So integrity is more important. So you should only have need to know and least privileges when it comes to all the security principles in the team premises. So now we will see about why data privacy is important, and what is data privacy, and some of the data privacy principles. So data privacy is the context of data protection, refers to the protection of personal and sensitive data of the individual. So data privacy, I would say in a simple words, right? It is a concern on how properly we handle our data, right? How properly we handle all our sensitive or the confidential data, such as our financial data, or it can be an intellectual property data, so which meets all the legal and regulatory requirements. So every country have their own legal and regulatory requirements. So whatever the data that is being collected for personal or for anything use, right, so it should comply with all the legal and regulatory requirements. So this I talked about sensitive and confidential data, right? So this falls under two things. One is PII and another one is SPII. So PII is personally identifiable information, and any data that can be used to identify a specific individual, right? Whether the person is being identified directly or indirectly, for example, name, ID, like email ID, social security number, or even the driving license number, right? So if anything that can be used to identify a specific individual, we call it as PII. And SPII is sensitive personally identifiable information, which is a special category of information by which one can assume the identity of another person, such as government IDs and biometric data. So we have all those things, right? It is if I have someone else health information, or if someone else biometric data, I can assume those identity, right? I can have and assume those identity of the another person. So that is being considered as PII data. So we should always ensure our PII and SPII is private, and it is being secured to ensure our integrity and identity is safe. And why is data privacy is more important, right? So the first point talks about it is the right of an individual to have control over how their personal data is being collected and used. So it is true, right? As an individual, you should know where your personal data is getting stored and why it is being collected and for what purpose it is being used, right? Because nowadays, even if for accessing camera or accessing any application, right, it is asking for camera permissions or it is asking for some lot of permissions. So you should always, as an individual, you should think that why our personal data is being stored, why our personal data is getting collected, and what they will be doing by collecting it. So those kind of things that you should be aware of, and you should ask those questions to yourself before providing those data. And second one is, I would say, business asset management is another key part. Whereas data is most important for any asset, right? Any company, right? For any company, data is one of the important asset. And we live in a data economy where companies find enormous value in collecting, sharing, and using our data. Not our own data, but it can also be customers, users, even especially from social media as well. So transparency is more important when it comes to data privacy, because it shows how the business is requesting the consent to keep their personal data safe, right? Like abide by their privacy policies and everything. They should know how they are managing whatever the data that they are collecting from the customers. So that is more important, because once our data is getting breached, or if it is being leaked in web pages or online, right, then the customer trust will be lost. So it is always, customer trust is more and more important for any company. So who naturally expect privacy as a human right, right? So I think customer trust is more important. So in order to build those trust, I think the data privacy, handling those data is more important, and how you are properly securely storing those data. And next one is regulatory compliance. So how we are going to manage those data to ensure that all those data which I have collected, it meets all the regulatory compliance, right? There are a lot of regulatory laws and regulations. For example, for Europe, there is GDPR, and for California, there is CCPA. So lot of things, right? So business should have to meet all the legal responsibilities about how they are collecting those data. So they should have a proper procedure in place to tell the customers or the users how they are collecting their data, and how they are storing their data, and how they are processing their personal data. Because if it is non-compliant to the specific regulations, it can cause a huge amount of fine. So if the business becomes a victim, we have seen, right, ransomware, we have seen a lot of attacks now. If the business becomes the victim of ransomware, then the consequences in the terms of revenue loss is more and more high for the organization, as well as it will lead to the reputation loss as well. So it is a right, or it is the duty of every organization to ensure that they meet all the legal responsibilities. So I will tell you one example about how they are using. So uh, based on the last point, right, companies that do not comply with the data privacy regulation should pay a huge penalty. So I will explain this with one recent example that is being happened to one of the bigger organization. So on July 16th, 2021, right, so the Luxembourg National Commission for Data Protection, right, they issued the biggest fine ever for violation of GDPR. So it is amount of totally 746 million euros to Amazon. So the fine was issued because the fine was issued as a result of complaint filed by over 10,000 plus employees, right? Over 10,000 plus employees filed against Amazon, that through a private group, that it is collecting some customer data, and we feel that it is not properly handled. So what they did, right? Once they have those issues, so the CNDP, which I have told, right? So they opened an investigation into how Amazon is collecting all those data, right? How Amazon is collecting our data, how Amazon is processing our data, and to whom and all our data is getting visible, right? So those kind of verification process has been, an investigation has been done into Amazon company, and they found that the personal data of their customers are uh, are infringements, basically the advertising target system, right? That is not carried out with the proper consent of the customer. So they find the amount of total 748 million euros to Amazon, which is a huge penalty that they didn't comply with GDPR. GDPR is another regulations which we will see in the upcoming slides. So it is always ensure that how our data is getting handled, how our data is getting stored, and for whom and all our data is getting shared. So we should ensure and we should ask ourselves that why they are asking so many data, right? So why I need to give these data? Are they compliant? Are they safe? And what are all the things that they can do with our data? So those kind of questions that you need to ask yourself, and you need to aware how they are properly handling your data. And moving on, many people will get confused and between two terms, data privacy and data security. But it is totally different, right? Many of us think that data privacy, if it is being compliant, then I am also compliant to data security. It is not the case. Data privacy is not at all a data security. Businesses are sometimes confused by the terms and mistakenly believe that keeping all the personal and sensitive data secure from hackers, it means that they are automatically compliant with the data privacy regulations. So that is not at all the case. Data security means it protects data from compromise by external attackers. So data security, what we will be doing is that we protect all the organizational assets, informations, all the data from being compromised by the external attackers or hackers or malicious insiders. Whereas data privacy, as I already said, it relies on how properly our data is getting collected, shared, and used. So there are totally different part, right? Data security is more about how securely we protect the data from attackers, whereas data privacy is how properly we handle our data, how properly we store our data, and how it is getting collected and how it is getting shared, and from where and all it is getting used. So that is more important. So security protects data from compromise by external attackers and malicious insiders, whereas data privacy, as you see in the screen, right, it protecting the PII and SPI data over the whole information lifecycle. So under data protection, there is a big layer called as data protection. Under data protection only, we will be having all this data privacy and data security. So traditional data protection mechanism is more about backing up the data. We are restoring all those data, right? And archiving those data and physical infrastructure, replications and data retentions. So those kind of requirements come under traditional data protection mechanism, whereas data security is more about, as I said, encryption, threat monitoring. We will be monitoring all over the networks whether the threat is being coming or not, and authentication, authorization, and data loss prevention, who's doing the malicious insiders, and whether the company's data is getting transferred to their personal account. So those kind of things falls under data security, whereas data privacy is more about legislation and data governance, global variations, and third-party contracts, where you'll be having a lot of legal agreements, right, for transferring cross-border transfer. For example, this is a logistics company where you will transfer a lot of data and everything. There will be a lot of cross-border transfer as well. So those kind of things come under data privacy. So with that said, because what I want to say here, right? Security becomes the important element, as I already said, right? It is the important element in protecting from all the external and internal attackers. But privacy deals with the aspects of control process, basically. So how we are sharing our data with the third parties, and our third parties, where they are getting stored, our data is getting stored, and what are all the specific regulations that is being applied for these process. So those kind of things will comes under data privacy. And there are a lot of data privacy regulations. So we'll see that in detail. So first one is GDPR. There are totally three important data privacy regulations that I want to highlight in this session. So first we'll see about GDPR. GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation, which aims to protect EU citizens' personal data. So as we all know, right, there are a lot of like major effects, a lot of like attacks in the European companies, right? So there are many aspects of GDPR and many tasks that the companies have to undertake, that they achieve and maintain to compliance with this GDPR, because GDPR have lot of rules and regulations that every companies in Europe, they should follow that they are compliant with this data privacy regulation. So this includes what are all the things will be in GDPR, right? If I am a European person, right? So if I live in EU, what I have the right, you know, right? So I can request a company that my data, if my data is getting stored in any specific company, right? I have all the rights and access to ask them that it should not get stored. I have all the rights and access that my own data, if I'm not feeling comfortable, they should not be able to store. So I have all those rights. So the right to have your data is getting deleted. So if I feel my data is not secure, I want you to delete this from this organization, I have all those rights. I can request and I can delete those data. So there are a lot of privacy related data points for under GDPR. So it basically GDPR gives consumer a certain rights over their data, because there are a lot of security obligations that is being happening on companies, right? Because holding all our customer data, all our PII confidential data. So for companies, one challenging aspect, right, when it comes to legislation is complying with this GDPR policy, because it gives all the control to the consumer or the user who is in the European facts. So you should always ensure that any organizations or any European companies, they should ensure that they are legal with, they are compliant with the GDPR law. And next one is CCPA. CCPA stands for California Consumer Privacy Act, protects the rights of Californians to not have their data getting sold by companies. So CCPA basically it protects the right of Californians. So if I'm a Californian, right? So I have all the rights and request that my data is not getting sold by any companies. What they will do, right? So in California, we have a lot of companies, right? Companies dealing with Californians, they must include either in their web page or in their company's portal, right? They must include that they do not sell any such personal information of the Californians. They should get this, they must be linked into the web page or home pages to give consumers that they have all the rights to opt out of allowing their information to be added, right? So then automatically, if I'm a Californian, I will be having all those trust on the company, and it is a kind of law in California alone, the respective state. So it started in 2020, where CCPA is being used to identify and discover all the personal information. So it also fulfills the data subject access request as well. So if it wants to protect the consumer data, right, it gives all the control over the companies on how they are collecting those data and how they are using those data and how the personal data is being used. So this means that the companies need to be able to quickly and accurately find and classify the sensitive data. So if I'm part of any organization in California, right, the first thing that an organization will be doing is that, okay, Hari have a list of PII data, Hari have a list of SPII data. So they will classify and find what are all the data that comes under PII and what are all the data that comes under SPII. Then they will identify those data that falls under the CCPA regulations, and they will fulfill all the data subject access request. So what do we call here as data subject access request? So if I am as I already said, if I am a Californian, I have all the access and all the requests towards my data, because I own this data, because you're using my data and I have all those access. So I can request the organization to not sell those data to any third parties, or how they are using those data. If I want to delete it, I have all those rights. I can ask the organization to delete those data as well. And third one is HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability Accountability Acts, which is a data privacy regulation that is being in place to safeguard patient personal health information. So HIPAA is another data privacy regulation that was put in place to safeguard all our patient personal health information, because health information, as I already said, it is a sensitive PII, right? Because it is more sensitive if it is being if the data is breached, right? So anyone can make use of those identity, and they can do anything. And as a healthcare providers, right, they have always been an attractive target for the attackers. So if you see the statistics, right, the most number of attacks that is being happened, it is only on the healthcare providers. So this act, right, so it will ensure that, and it will have the proper security controls to ensure that whoever the patient, right, they have their personal health information data is being protected. And HIPAA is more important because it ensures all the healthcare providers and all the health plans or health clearinghouses and business associates of all this HIPAA, right? They must implement multiple safeguards to protect all the sensitive personal health information. So it is not only for the healthcare providers, it is for the individual as well. They need to protect all health conditions of individual provisions and even payments done in past, present and future, right? Everything will be taken care of HIPAA laws. So these are some of the data privacy regulations. So there are a lot of regulations. It all started with US Privacy Act in 1974 for maintaining the restrictions of data. Then it started with HIPAA in 1996, and privacy rule came by 2000, and even we have the GDPR and CCPA now. So we should always ensure that whatever the data that we are getting collected, right, the organization is collected, it must comply with the data privacy regulations. And I think we have come to the end of the session. So I will just tell the summary of what are all the things that we have seen till now. So first, we have seen about what is the importance of information security, like access control, segregation of duties and everything. And second, awareness on some of the common attacks and security principles. So where we have seen some phishing attack, we have seen some real life scenario. If we click on the malicious links, right, so it will directly pop out, reach to the hacker's database, and once he gains the access, he can do the malicious activities. And some of the security principles like segregation of duties, authorization and access control, and awareness on some of the security frameworks, and data privacy and data security. What is the important difference and how our data is getting handled, right? Data security is more about the security of how our data is getting protected from external attackers, whereas data privacy is more about governing on how properly our data is getting handled, stored and being processed. And what are all the importance of data privacy, and what can happen if it is not being properly handled. It can lead to a huge penalty, and it will reputation loss and customer trust. So those kind of things we discussed. And finally, we have also seen some of the data privacy regulations in each regions, GDPR, CCPA and HIPAA. And there are a lot of privacy regulations as well, which you can have a look once you have time. So with that said, I will open up for Q&A, and you feel free to unmute yourself, and you can ask any questions, and you can provide any feedback for me.
Yeah, Hari, this is Ravindra.
Yeah.
Nice hearing to your speech. Actually, a small question, as there is no, you didn't touch the subject as how we can find out those things. For example, you said that security as far as return and banking is concerned. This goes to that now he develops these things, the hacker develops those things. How can we find that? Is there any indication that we'll get? Or you see that we need to be alert all the time and there is no possibility of finding out this is fake or this is real?
Yeah, maybe I can show you. The thing is, good question, Raghavendran. So the first thing is I want to tell you is domain name. Domain name is more important because every organization will have a domain name. For example, you should always see what is the exact domain name. For example, it is WWL. So you should be seeing at wwl.com. But if the attacker, right, he will have some similar kind of domain, but it will not be WWL. It looks like a legitimate one, but the domain name will be totally different. The first thing you should always ensure is where the domain is getting coming from, where the address part is more important. And once you, even though if a legitimate one, even though if the domain name looks legitimate, right, then you need to check on those links to you need to bring over your cursor and right click to see whether it really redirects to the perfect legitimate web page or not. So those kind of things you need to make yourself aware. But the first and foremost thing that you need to see is domain name. Domain name, I don't think the exact domain name will occur. If it is a phishing attack, either it can be a uppercase or a lowercase, or some underscore will be added, or it looks like a legitimate one, but www_.com, but you will not notify or you will not see in such a way, okay, it is from, it looks like a legitimate one, you will directly go and you will click on. So you should always first have a look on the domain. And once the domain name is clear, as a next step, you should go and see whether it really redirects to the company's trusted website or not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Hari.
Hi. Hello.
Rajaganesh here.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a query. Okay.
Yeah.
Being to profession, everybody will be getting a lot of mail on day-to-day priorities, right? I mean, on their day-to-day job. But how do we identify or how to it is a phishing mail? Of course, see, there are some mails you will be, the moment you open the mail, it will be installed in your system or it will be hacked, right? Say, for example, I can tell you one thing. A few months back, I got a message. I just clicked the link, okay? But of course, I didn't notice that it has come from not from the banking side. The moment I click the link, it has accessed my application, mobile application, and the money has been from the account. So we get the same thing over mail. How do we identify or how do we differentiate? When we open the mail only, we will come to know what kind of mail it is. Or is there any attachment or something? But without opening the mail, we come to know.
Correct. So the first thing is any mail that we receive from.
One more thing. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Prem.
Sure.
Because I have also experienced the same thing. 2 years back, I got mail from one of my known schoolmate friend. Okay. But it was on his name only. The moment I opened the mail, it was not from him exactly. It was the name only appears, seems to be him, but in reality, he is not the guy. But later only it came to me that it is phishing mail.
Got it. So the first thing is if we have a mail, right? If it comes inside the organization, there will not be any disclaimer stating that it is coming from outside of the organization or it is coming from inside of the organization. If you are into the VPN, right? If you are into the company's network or something like that, if I'm sending any Gmail related from Gmail, if I'm sending to my organization mail, automatically there will be a disclaimer stating that this email has been originated outside of so and so company, right? So that is the first disclaimer. It's stating that it is not from the same company and it is not from the trusted people. So that is first point. And second one, as you already see, if it is coming from outside of the company, you will be checking whether it is the legitimate one or it is someone who knows me, who have sent this email or not. And of course, it is the domain is another important factor for phishing. So you will check on what are all the domains and whether it is a legitimate domain or not, and what are all the attachments, right? You should never, even though if it is a trusted one, you should not directly go and click on the attachments. You should first see what is the mail, how it is being framed, because the attacker's motive is to create as legitimate as original. So you should always ensure that all the domain names are safe and whether it is coming from outside of our own company. And third one is whether there are any links being attached. So these are all some of the three things. But in future or now, I think lot of organizations are doing machine learning and AI related phishing applications, which automatically says that they are all having some keywords. So they are putting it as a feed to the AI and ML algorithms, where it automatically populates and tells that this is the phishing email. But in current scenario, what we will be doing is that it is only a phishing awareness training and awareness sessions. And it is more important that every organization should have at least every quarter there should be a phishing awareness session, because what are all the different types of way that an attacker can steal the credentials. But from our end, from the user perspective, what we need to look is whether it is originated from outside of the company or it is the domain name is being different, and whether it has any attachments or any malicious links. So these are the three factors that we need to always look into when any mail, because we automatically as a human mind, right? So we used to click and we directly will not see about domains. That's why there should be a proper disclaimer from any organization that if it is originated from outside of the company, there should be a disclaimer which states that this email has been originated outside of so and so company. So which is the first point where you will be able to see that, okay, this message is not from inside the company, it is from outside of the company. And so it can be legitimate. Maybe your friend or anybody can, you yourself can send it from your own personal email, but you need to check what are all the links. And important thing is domain name. The important factor that the hacker plays or trick is only with the domain name. They can't do, they can make it more clear and they can make it look more legitimate, but the domain name they can't change. The domain name, for example, www.com, it looks like www, but there will be a comma or there will be some underscore, which you will not be noting. So you will not be able to see. So you should always ensure the domain name and the disclaimer and malicious links. So that is what my best practices I will recommend, Raj Ganesh.
Okay.
And even now, some organization also have some phishing alarm button as well, which is being automatically integrated in Outlook. For example, what they will do if they see something, okay, I am not, it may be legitimate or it may be from the trusted person, but I feel, okay, this is not from the trusted person. Automatically, what I will be doing is that I will click on the report phish alarm button. So there will be a separate team who will just investigate and they will again come back. So those kind of mechanisms and those kind of options are also being now done. So those kind of we have a lot of readily available applications which is being telling whether this respective application is mail is a phishing email or not. So those kind of options are also available. It depends on always budget, but it depends on the company's requirements.
Okay, and one more feedback I do have.
Yeah.
As a layman, okay, I am telling a layman perspective. Every day we are sending, so we are sharing many data through emails, WhatsApp, sometimes even certain what do you call free websites where we can have data sharing and all. Okay, because in mail we cannot send more than 5 MB.
Correct.
Okay. We go for a common drive, okay, where we'll be putting it and we'll be sending the link through somebody else, through the link who can download the files which we uploaded in the portal. Okay, so what are the safety measures that we can follow when we go for an unknown website like A Drive?
Okay, if you are looking for any third-party websites, or if you feel that it is a open source, right? You should first
Yes.
read the privacy, right? Privacy and what are all the things that they are using, because many of us we will not look into what they are storing or is there any proper security controls, because whatever the data we are uploading, they might use for some references or from data analytic purposes. So easily our data can be breached. So you should first, they will be mentioned, they can easily be trapped. Our data can be easily trapped. So you should always read the data privacy guidelines. Every open source tool, or they will be having all the data privacy. They will be mentioning what are all the things that they will be doing as part of collecting your data, how they are processing your data. The thing is, once you feel that it is secured, and if it is confidential data or if it is a PAA data, then it is not at all advisable for an open source tool. Only if it is a public data, or it can be easily, if it is a public data or a proprietary data, then we can go for an open source tool. If it is a confidential data, it is totally not advisable to use an open source tool, because they can use it for all the data analytics purposes. For it can be anything. They can easily store all your credentials, or they can do anything. So open source we can use, but it is only with respect to what data we collect or what data that we are going to put inside those tools. So that is more important.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rajagnesh. Hi, Madan.
Hi, yeah. See, so we are in payments, okay. So we have been getting a lot of links, okay. So we are at most we are trusting all the links, okay. And we don't know which one is good and which one is bad link, okay. As you said, you have to check on. We have to be very, very, very what is it?
Cautious.
Very, very sharp and cautious or sharp and identifying. Okay, everyone can't be the same thing, correct? Everyone cannot be on the same page, okay. There may be people who will be clicking and paying it, okay. See, if we are into the link, how can you just come out without any malfunctioning or something like that? If suppose we are clicking the link and we are going into the page, okay.
Okay.
How can you just come out?
So it is not something if we click on something, we can't directly come out of it. So once you click on the malicious link, right, there are huge possibilities for them to store or hack your data. So there are a lot of possibilities, but it is not sure that that whether you can directly come out of it. If you come out of it, it is not assured that your data is being safe. So once you click on the malicious link, anything can happen. So it is not assured. So that is what
you mean to say. You mean to say if you're clicking the link, entire data will be crashed?
No,
or
no,
something
no.
Like that?
Not entire data. See, for example, phishing can be through link or through messages, or it can be anything. What they can do, either they can gain some access to your system, or what they will do is that once you click on this link, they can inject the malicious software, which will slow down your process. Slowly it will eat all your data, and once your computer slows down, what they will do, they will demand some ransomware. So if your system have some CIA confidential data or PAA data, right, they will be able to get those data, and once your data or once your computer is logged, then they will demand some ransom. Unless or until if you pay a ransom, they will not provide all those data. So that's why we see in nowadays a lot of phishing attacks are being common, and it is not at the same time, right? Like if you click on the link directly, they will not be able to get all those details. That is very, very, very rare scenario. The only thing can happen is they can slow down your system, or they can inject some malicious software, some hardware, spyware, viruses. So those kind of things can also be installed in your system. So there are a lot of huge possibilities for that. But it is not that if I click on this link, it will automatically take all my credentials, because we have all the two-factor authentications and everything will be in place, right? So it is not that every data of ours will be stolen by the attackers. For that, we should have some best practices, and we should have the a proper link and network. For example, if you are telling that you are receiving a lot of mails from a single network, right? So what you can do is that there can be something called as privacy network or a privacy channel, where only this organization, if A organization wants to have a connect with B organization, there can be a privacy channel concept, where whatever the transactions or whatever the emails, right, it can be in an encrypted format. So through encryption, automatically it determines that it is being secured. And after that as well, you can have a follow-up check that whether it is a legitimate one or not. We have a lot of options. Encryption is one options, and also we have sanitizing all those data and like those kind of things. Lot of options has been available, is now readily available in market for encryptions, and with that we can make it more secure.
Okay. So there's no other way coming out of it, correct? See, if you're just into the link.
Yep.
Yeah, finish it.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, see, by mistakenly you are just clicking it, okay. There's no other way of coming out of it. If you are into it, you are just into it, that's all.
It is not once you click on the malicious link, it can anything can happen. It is not 100%. We can't tell that all your data is being stored. And we have some options. There are some application tools which often tells you that this link is being malicious. So that is the only way we can do. Once if we click on those malicious link, if you have all the antivirus in your system, and if you have all the malicious activities detections applications in your system, then automatically it will detect that these are all some of the things and threats and vulnerabilities that is being in this respective website, and it is not advisable to use. Once you have those in controls, right, then you can automatically come back. It is not every time that if you click this link, my credential is lost. Okay. If you have all the antivirus and if you have all the intrusion detection system in the sense, if it feels some hardware, malware, or vulnerabilities that is being presented in this web page, it will automatically detect, and it will also notify the user that this is not the protected website. So automatically you can come back.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is something, I was telling, right, it differs from use case to use case. So if you have all the confidential data, if we have all those control, then the scenario will be totally different. But we have, from a security standpoint, we have a lot of controls. Intrusion detection system is one most biggest control that a company has in order to avoid from threats, vulnerabilities, and attackers. Because intrusion detection system, what they will be doing is that there is a separate team called a cyber defense, where they will monitor all the network, that where are all the possible endpoints that an attacker can come in and do some malicious activities. So those kind of monitoring mechanism, a separate team will handle for an organization. So their 24 hours, it will be a 24/7 monitoring process, where they will monitor all the network and weakness where the malicious attackers or an hacker can gain access. So we have all the tools nowadays. Microsoft threat detection tool is one security incident response tool. So those kind of tools will automatically populate a user that you are clicking the malicious link, and these are all some of the vulnerabilities that is being present, and these are all the possible attacks that the attacker can do. For example, SQL injection attack. So there is a vulnerability and weakness in this application, and this is what the attacker can do. So that is what, if it is I told you, right, in the initial session, CIA rating of the application. So if the CIA rating of the application is high, if it is a high risk application, we will be doing a threat modeling process. What we will be doing is that we will be drawing all the architecture of the application, and we will sit with the business teams to understand where are all the possible weakness that the attacker can come in and steal all the credentials or make some changes. So the tool, Microsoft tool itself, automatically populates what are all the list of threats and vulnerabilities that the attacker can do. So we will sit with the business whether this can really happen or not, and what are all the potential controls that we can fix from our side. So those kind of discussions will happen. But now in market, we have a lot of tools, Madan, to identify the vulnerabilities. We can easily come back of the link.
Okay, and you told there is some alarm being set in Outlook. How does it work?
It basically it is with specific organization they can integrate. So with respect, if you take my organization, if I'm currently working, there is a separate option called as Phish Alarm. So if you feel this email is, if you feel that it is not secure, and I feel that it is not legitimate, then I will directly go and report the Phish Alarm button. So directly what the email will be sending to there will be a phishing team. So they will do a deep research, and they will confirm us whether this is the legitimate one or not. If it is a phishing email, they will directly delete it, and they will block those domains where a person can't use the same domain to reach our company's network. It is with the respective company, so they can integrate the Outlook with the respective application, and they can have a separate team to maintain whether this application is a legitimate one or not, or the email is a legitimate one or not.
Okay, which means person has to identify. So the alarm what you have set, it will not automatically detect the mail, correct?
Two things. Either there will be two options. Either you feel that it is a legitimate one, and you want to verify whether this is really a legitimate one or it is a phishing email. Second one, you directly can go and report this phishing alarm. Phishing alarm will block this domain and it will delete this mail, so that you will not be able to get the same domain email again in your system. There are two options here.
Okay. Fine.
Nowadays, a lot of tools available, Madan. That's what I am telling again and again. So there are a lot of tools available, and where it easily states that these are all some of the, even though it is not a real threat. For example, if it is a low risk application also, there will be some possible threats and risk that the tool will populate. It is not that if it populates the SQL injection attack, the attacker can easily perform. It is not the case. We will sit with the business teams to understand, is it really possible that an attacker can do this attack, right?
Okay.
So if it is not possible, then we will be avoiding those attacks.
Okay.
So it is not mandatory that whatever the risk or whatever the threats that the tool is populating, so it is not something that we should always consider.
Okay.
It will be doing the advanced level of security search, and it will populate some of the possible outcomes. So with that, we will be doing some research. And with respect to this phishing alarm, there are multiple options. Yeah.
So which we can use it if
Correct.
needed.
Yes, but the best practices from our side, as I already said, I want to reiterate again and again, right? So first thing is, you should always look onto the domain name. Even though we receive multiple things, so we will be seeing the messages and everything, we should look onto the domain name. And if it is outside of our company, there will be a disclaimer mention. That is the first thing. And third one is, you should, if it is HTTP, right, you should never click on those links, because nowadays, even though some of the attackers directly they are sending the HTTP link, and some of the malicious attackers not even HTTPS. So we should avoid those, and we should bring our cursor over there, and we should check, and we should make ourselves that the organization protected and ourselves safe from these attacks.
Okay. Fine. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Madan. Great question.
Any others?
Any questions or any feedback you have for me?
And one more thing, okay. See what I tell about mail. Okay, if I'm paying through a site or what is the other thing, how can I identify apart from HTTPS something like that? Because
Yes.
if you go and you're paying in urgency means you can't just go and look at everything. Correct.
Correct.
So all you have to do, you have to pay it. That's all. Okay.
Correct.
So I just wanted to keep myself assured that I am paying the right site.
Correct.
So how do I know that?
Good question. Thanks, Madan. So if you are going to a trusted website, right? So if you go to any website, there you can see some lock symbol, right? Here you can see in the screen. It will be a green lock which states that this website is being secured. If a website is fully secured, you will be getting this lock, which is the symbol states that this website is fully protected and you can do whatever the transactions, or you can click on those links, and it can be anything. If you didn't see this lock, right, then it is not a protected website.
You mean to say the lock has to be in color green, correct?
Correct.
So if the green color, it is safe.
Yes.
Apart from green, it's unsafe.
Yes. HTTPS, if you see all the HTTPS, right, automatically you can see this green lock which is being presented in your URL, which means that your entire website is being fully secured. All the certificate authority is being secured. That is what it means.
So why I'm asking you this, because I have seen many sites, okay, but I've never seen anything like in green color.
No, it doesn't mean that green, right? It means that your lock symbol should be, I've just giving you an example, right?
Okay.
You will be having this lock symbol for sure. It means that any banking website or anything you trusted website, right? It will have all this, which means that end-to-end encryption is being happening, and this website is being fully secured. So that's
Okay.
what it means. HTTPS, if you take anything, right, you can see all those things.
Okay. Which means lock. If there is a lock symbol, site is trusted one.
Yes.
Fine. And we can go and pay it. There won't be any hassle or something like that problem.
No, that there can't be any problem because it is the entire website is being secured, end-to-end
Okay.
encrypted, and it is being secured. Whatever the data, any
There
transactions.
can be no malware, no malfunctioning, no.
No.
If it is locked.
Yes, because it is being 24 hours, it will be like secured, monitored, and everything, right? Because
Okay.
once it has the proper security controls in place, and once it is being verified, then only we will be able to get all the HTTPS. If it is not a verified or a trusted website, we will not be able to get this log or HTTPS. It is only
Okay.
HTTP. So that's where it is HTTP. Yes, S stands for secured.
Okay.
Hypertext Transfer Protocol secured. S stands for.
Fine. That's fine. That's perfect.
Yeah. Thanks, mother.
Thank you, Hari.
Yeah.
தமிழ்ல கூட கேட்கலாம் क्वेश्चंस எது வந்ததுனா Ananji, IT team, any questions? Balaji? Any question, Rika? Fine.
Okay. Thanks everyone for attending this webinar, and I hope it is one of the useful sessions that you have attended. And thanks for the great questions, and I hope I have answered those. And thanks for the opportunity once again. And thank you.